London in World War II, we're on the historic environment of the City of London. This is part two. We're going to look at the nature of the attacks today, so consider what the Blitz was, types of bombs that were used, and the Little Blitz, and later in the war, the use by the Germans of V1 and V2 rockets against the citizens of London. So to start with, London was first attacked on Black Saturday, the 7th of September 1940. And the main target of the Luftwaffe, the German Air Force, was the East End of London, because that's where the docks are, the warehouses and the factories, and therefore hitting that would really disrupt Britain's economy and its ability to defend itself and wage war back against the Germans. Now, the attack went on for about 12 hours. Over 400 people were killed, and this signals the start of the Blitz, where London was bombed for 57 consecutive nights. Later in September, there was a shift away from the East End, and other areas of London were attacked. There's plenty of targets there. This is a big attempt to damage morale, to disrupt industry, to break down communications, and cause as many problems as they could for Britain. Other towns and cities in the country were targeted in the early months of 1941, of course, and relentless German raids continued till May the 11th, 1941, which is the date that marks the end of this so-called First Blitz. Now, three different types of bombs were used mainly by the Germans. The first one is incendiaries, which were used to start fires. Your best example of the use of these was the night of the 29th of December 1940, which was known as the Second Great Fire of London, with famously St Paul's Cathedral narrowly escaping being destroyed, mostly thanks to the efforts of volunteers and the fire brigade. Second type of bomb that's used is high explosive bombs, weighing between 50 and 1,800 kilograms, and these are the ones that cause huge blasts that could destroy buildings and cause a lot of damage by the shrapnel that was sent out after that explosion. Finally, thirdly, the Luftwaffe also dropped silent, powerful mines by parachute. Overall, 20,000 people were killed, and over 1 million homes were damaged or destroyed during this first stage of the bombing of London. And of course, the impact on the people of London was immense. Now, there was a break in the bombing between May 1941 and January 1944. That stage of the war, Germany was turning its attention towards the east and fighting the Soviet Union. 21st of January 1944, you get the start of the Little Blitz, which lasted until April 1944. Now, by this point, Germany had lost a lot of aircraft and lost a lot of their best pilots in the east against the Soviet Union. So therefore, these raids were less effective than the first Blitz early in the war. In June 1944, you get a new weapon being used on London, the V1 flying bomb. This was a low-flying, jet-propelled, pilotless plane that travelled at 400 miles per hour. Famously nicknamed by the Londoners as doodlebugs or buzz bombs because of the buzzing noise that the engine made before it fell from the sky. By September 1944, there was an even bigger threat to the people of London. This is where you see the start of the V2 rockets arriving. This is the early form of ballistic missile, really. Launched from mobile sites across the Channel in Northern Europe, travels through the upper atmosphere, very difficult to shoot down, and little warning before they hit. And the government was really worried about these and their destruction and the effect it would have on the morale of the citizens of London. They even blamed the first explosions, the first V2 hits, on faulty gas lines rather than telling the population about this new terror weapon that the Germans had invented. 25th of November 1944, there is a big disaster caused by a V2 landing. 168 people were killed on this date when the V2 landed on a branch of Woolworths in New Cross in Deptford. And such horrifying attacks continued really until all the V2 launch sites were captured by the Allies as they advanced into Northern Europe towards the end of 1944 and into the early months of 1945. And at last, London was free from attacks, from bombing raids, and the war, of course, was very nearly over.